Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about a very pointed but actually very real question. Does Southeast Asia support China more or Japan more? You might think the answer is complicated, but actually their daily lives have already silently made choices. Welcome to See South. Voices, 5 views from the South. You see, in politics and diplomacy, Southeast Asian leaders often say that they do not take sides. But as soon as you step into their city, take the high-speed train, open your phone, or go to a shopping mall, you'll find that a large portion of what they use, see, ride, and buy is related to China. And Japan, its role is completely different. It is now quieter, more gentle, and makes people feel safe, polite, and unpressured. Therefore, Southeast Asia is willing to seek balance with Japan politically, but this reliance is more like a psychological balance than actual dependence. Let's start with politics and security. Vietnam bought patrol boats from Japan. The Philippines asked Japan to support its Coast Guard training, and Indonesia invited Japan to participate in its maritime defense projects. Yes, these are all true. But you'll notice a pattern. Japan offers symbolic, polite, low-risk cooperation. These countries can survive without Japan. But without China, many of these countries' infrastructure projects simply wouldn't have been built. The two are not even in the same league. Next, let's talk about the economy, which is the most crucial part. Just ask one question. Can Southeast Asia function normally without China today? Unfortunately, the answer is no. Just look at the data. China has been ASEAN's largest trading partner for many consecutive years. It is the largest source of e-commerce supply chains for Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia. It is Laos's largest infrastructure investor. It is Cambodia's largest source of tourists. And it is Singapore's largest goods trading partner. This is not a position, but a fact. Let's look at some specific examples where we can find plenty of material. The Jakarta-Bandung high-speed railway in Indonesia, Southeast Asia's first truly high-speed railway. Thailand's Eastern Economic Corridor relies heavily on Chinese core equipment. Laos Energy, Power Grid, and transnational railways are almost entirely dependent on Chinese companies. Malaysia's photovoltaic industry, Cambodia's highways, the Philippines' telecommunications equipment. Southeast Asia's development is driven by Chinese supply chains and Chinese engineering teams. Japan. More symbolic investment, image projects, and a small amount of high-end manufacturing. Important, but not the mainstay. That is the difference. Next, we'll discuss culture and psychology. Young people in Southeast Asia do indeed have a positive impression of Japanese culture. Anime idols, hipster culture, brand image. Japan really excels at soft power. China is still catching up in this area, but the reality is, Chinese culture is actually more deeply ingrained in the daily lives of Southeast Asians. It is just that they don't perceive it as foreign culture. For example, Guangdong, Mazu, and Naja in temples, the Mid-Autumn Festival, the Lantern Festival, and the Chinese Zodiac, Chinese deities, and festivals in Chinatowns of Ayutthaya, Penang, Singapore, and Bangkok. The abundance of Chinese food, travel, and trendy content on short videos, and the profound influence of local Chinese communities on commerce, food, and customs. These things cannot be replaced by Japan, because it is not just a trend, it is a way of life. So you see an interesting phenomenon. Culturally, Southeast Asia likes Japan. In terms of lifestyle, Southeast Asia is close to China. Economically, Southeast Asia depends on China. Politically, Southeast Asia uses Japan to balance China. These 4 aspects coexist and do not conflict with each other. Finally, let's state our conclusion. If you only ask a binary question like, whom does Southeast Asia support more? The answer will never be accurate, because Southeast Asia isn't choosing sides, it is making choices based on a calculation. Which side benefits the people? Which side can boost the economy? Which side can bring jobs, investment, and infrastructure? The answer is actually quite clear. Japan brings goodwill, China brings opportunities, and Southeast Asian politicians must ultimately be responsible for those opportunities. So, if you had to summarize it in one sentence, Southeast Asia emotionally likes Japan, realistically relies on China, but where will it ultimately go? That depends on which side can make their lives better. And at this stage, the side that truly makes their lives better is quite obvious. That concludes today's analysis. If you'd like to see more concise and realistic geopolitical observations, remember to follow us.